What's up, YouTube? We're going to be talking about Kadena, Slinking Sorcerer. And if you want to build a deck for $68 that plays some of the most unique cards in Commander, has insane amount of values, and will make your opponents ask, what does this card do every single card you ever play? This is your Commander. Kadena is a 4-mana 3/3 legendary creature, Naga Wizard. And the first face-down creature spell you cast each turn costs 3 less, and anytime any face-down creature enters, you draw a card. So the wording on Kadena is super important. The two things are, it doesn't specify morph, it doesn't specify a specific type of face-down, it just says, if you play a face-down card and it's a creature, you draw. So with all the recent sets between Cloak, Disguise, yeah, I'm blanking now, but all these other recent face down sets that have come out in the last 2 years, Kadena has gotten a huge power boost, and because these cards are so parasitic and specific to only this kind of deck, the prices have stayed super low. So I wanted to show you guys my version of this deck list. I play it all the time, and every time I do, it's such a unique game experience. And I absolutely love it. So we've got Kadena here, and first with any sort of deck, you always need a ramp. So I'm going to go through those now. First off, we have Obscuring Aether. It's a 1-mana enchantment. It just makes all your face-down spells cost 1 less, so you're going to be paying 2 for your morphs. Obviously, the first one's going to be free if you have your commander, but being able to get those reduced down is awesome, and this effect stacks super well, which you'll see with some other cards we have. Soul Ring, it's Soul Ring. Sorry, getting used to this new 2-screen approach here, so appreciate you guys sticking along with me. Soul Ring, best card in Commander. Arcane Signet, just play it. Same thing, if you're playing one or more colors, this card should definitely be in your deck. Here's a more unique one. Dream Chisel is essentially just Obscuring Aether, but just costs 2 mana on an artifact, and it's a pretty sick looking art. It's like if some guy from Metallica started playing Kingdom Hearts or something. I don't know, just love that. And yeah, if you have both of those in play, it costs 1 mana, and then every time you do that, you draw a card. If you've got Kadena out, so really good. I'm pretty sure the rest of this is pretty generic here, so we're just gonna go through Farseek, Thelwar Stone, Nature's Lore, Rampant Growth, Steve, Simic Signet, a couple Talismans, and then the last 2 cards. Honest Rusting is just a 3 mana return a creature on ETB, but it also makes all creatures, whether they're face up or face down, cost 1 less. Ideally, we're going to be making all of our cards face down, but making your commander cost 1 less face up, that's great too. There are a couple non-morph cards in the deck that we want to cast, and this card just plays super well with everything else that we're doing. And this might be the single best card in the deck. So I'll just let me pull up the screen. So for 4 mana, threats around every corner, enchantment, ETB Manifest Dread, which I'll talk about in a second, and whenever a face down permanent you control enters, you basically Rampant Growth. You put a basic from your deck into your play tapped. So at worst, on baseline, it's 4 mana, Manifest Dread. So you look at the top 2, one comes into play face down, the other one goes to the graveyard. That triggers the bottom ability, so by default it's sort of Solemn Simulacrum. But everything about this deck is synergistic. So we've got our commander in play. We play this. Manifest Dread. We draw a card. We tutor land. Then we still got our free morph, which we play face down. We draw a card. We Rampant Growth. There have been times where I've put every single basic from my deck into play on a single turn. For 4 mana, this generates an obscene amount of ramp. So if you're going to build this deck on any budget, whether it's Ascent or max possible Kadena, which isn't it's pretty hard to do beyond with the card pool available. This card should be in your deck. All right. So we've got a ton of mana. We've got a little bit of value with our commander, but there's never enough value. So we're going to go through a couple of the more important value pieces in the deck, starting with a card that some of you folks have played with even outside of Morph decks, Maternal Witness, aka Den Protector. It's a 2/1 human warrior, can't be blocked. With creatures with power less than Den Protector can't block it. It's got Megamorph, which is basically 2 mana to flip it up, and it gets a counter, or it's anytime it says Morph or Cloak, it's just 3 mana to play face down. Unless you have a commander, then it's 0. And when you flip it face up, you return a card from your graveyard to your hand. Awesome. All right, then we've got Print Lifter Ooze. This card is ridiculous. So by default, it's just a 2 mana 2/2 Death Touch. But if you disguise it, and disguise is same thing, you play it face down for 3 mana. It's a 2/2, and then I always get disguise and cloak mixed up, but yeah, that's the other effect. One of them has like ward 2. I don't remember the difference. I apologize. This one is like the extended version, so it doesn't have the rules text. But whenever it or another creature's turn face up, you make a 0/0 ooze where X is with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of creatures you control. So if you flip it face up, by default it makes a 2/2. And obviously when you play it, you draw a card. But it keeps getting bigger and bigger as you keep morphing and playing and flipping stuff up. You're going to get a ton of huge tokens out of this card. And for 2 mana, that's just insane. All right, some more standard value. We've got Secret Plans. All of our face down creatures get a +1 buff to toughness, and anytime we turn a permanent face up, which will happen all the time, we draw a card. Again, for 2 mana, you are going to get quite a bit more than 2 mana worth of value out of that card. But only in this deck. All right, then we've got Trail of Mystery. Anytime it's basically just the worst version of Threats Beyond Every Corner, but instead of ramping into play, it just puts a land into our hand, so we never miss land drops with this card. And it also gives us, anytime we flip something face up, it gets +2/+2. And this card also has a huge threat of activation. So let's say we have a Print Lifter Ooze face down, and we attack with it, and we've got all of our mana untapped. Well, not only does our opponent not know what this is, and we've got all our mana, but they also know that when we flip it up, it's going to also have that +2/+2. Because you can morph at instant speed, or Megamorph, or Cloak, or Disguise, or whatever. So that's a lot of value, and it's good at combat, and I love it for 2 mana. Speaking of value, this card will never leave. If your opponent can ever exile it, I highly recommend it. It's a 3 mana 3/3 Death Touch, and whenever a permanent you control is turned face up, you reanimate it face up or face down. Yeah, so I mean, you've got a couple of plays here. One, you block, flip it face up, you get Death Touch, it dies. Next turn, you morph something, it comes back in face down, and when you put it back in face down, guess what? That draws you a card. Oh, guess what? It gets you a basic. Guess what? It ramps you with Threats Beyond Every Corner. So this is a great defensive card. I pretty much never really attack with it, but just having that recurable death-touching body that synergizes and draws cards is awesome. Next, we've got Dulcet Sirens, which is also a super interesting card. 3 mana 1/3 Siren. You can pay 1 blue and tap it to force target creature to attack this turn. And this is quite a bit different than Goad because first off, it's instant speed, so your opponent goes to combat. They've said something, oh, I'm going to attack you. Well, before they declare attackers. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of a different card. But if, for instance, you've got good blockers and your opponent's got, a bunch of value pieces, you can force them to attack. They can attack you, so in that way, it's worse than Goad. But the fact that you can do this at instant speed is huge. The fact that it's also an instant speed face down onboard effect Uncounterable means you can flip it up for 1 mana, activate it for 2 mana, force them to attack. I mean, it's, yeah. I'm not saying it's the best card in the deck, but we love a little Siren. And then a card that a lot of people forget has Morph, because most people just love it for the face-up effect, is Grim Haruspex. 3 mana, 3/2. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, draw a card. We play very few tokens in this deck, so your opponent attacks with everything. They think you've forced a jump. You flip it face up for 1 mana, and instead of just jumping, all your creatures that you're blocking with now draw you a card. Or your opponent casts Wrath of God, flip it face up. Now you're drawing 5 cards. It's just a good card. Alrighty. Then we've got Under the Skin. This is another regrowth type effect with Manifest Dread. So with your commander out, this is always a 2-for-1. Assuming you have a permanent in your graveyard, which you would need to. Well, actually, no, I'm sorry, you wouldn't need to, because it's a May effect and the Manifest Dread is the base ability. So you play it, you Manifest Dread. The cool thing is, sorry, you Manifest Dread. These are your 2 cards. Oh, I put Grim Haruspex into my hand. The other card goes in the graveyard. Well, it says then you may return, so it resolves top down. So then you can choose the card that you put into the graveyard while you're manifesting Dread. Or you just return anything else, and that's pretty decent. Alrighty, then we've got a little bit of Assassin's Creed love. Oh my goodness, there we go. Alright, so we've got Aveline de Grand Prix, a 4 mana 3/3 Death Touch. Disguise 2, and whenever a creature you control deals with Death Touch deals combat damage to a player, put that many +1/+1 counters on it. This card is completely exponential. This is a great card for you to attack in. Your opponent blocks with like a 2/3. You flip it face up, you kill the creature. Or you attack in, they can't block, gets 3 counters. Now you have a 6/6, then 12/12, 24/24. We do have some other Death Touchers. It's not like a main theme of the deck, but again, it's fine. This card is crazy. We've got Become Anonymous, another Assassin's Creed card that just makes this deck better. It's a 4 mana instant, which we don't have a ton of instants in the deck because our morphs kind of act as our instant speed interaction. 4 mana, exile target non-token creature you own and the top 2 cards of your library in a face-down pile, shuffle it, then cloak those cards. And you put them on the battlefield tapped. The crazy thing about this card is it is so versatile. So, commander's out. Say we got a commander out and we have a 2020 Aveline from attacking or whatever, or something like that. They target it with Swords to Plowshares. You cast this, exiling this, and the top 2 cards of your library face down. So then these all enter face down, they're tapped, draw 3. And your spell fizzled because you removed it. And you don't know which is which. With morphs, you're supposed to make sure you track the order that they come in. That's not supposed to be hidden information. So, little tip with morphing: if you're putting morphs face down, you can't just pick them up for no reason and shuffle them around to make it be like, I don't, make your opponents not remember which one is which. That is not how that works. But this card literally lets you break the rules and do that, all while re-triggering this. And then if you happen to flip any other morph cards, well, there's plenty of ways in this deck to flip stuff up. So yeah, that card's pretty neat, and it's a good little trick. All right, let me get to my mouse. Where are we at? Yeah. So yeah, with the value cards, I'm gonna go a little bit slower just because this is kind of the meat of the deck, and once we get to other stuff, we'll speed things up. So yeah, we've got Experiment 12. Another crazy card. This card is just probably your best straight up win condition. So 4 mana, 4 for a trample. Whenever it or another creature's turn faced up, put counters on it equal to its power. Yeah, that's huge. So this becomes an 8/8 trample. Pretty much it makes combat impossible for your opponents if you're attacking with face-down creatures, because threat of activation means that any creature you attack is double its power and toughness. The other cool thing is turning cards face up and face down does not remove them from play, unless it says like exile it and then put it into play face down, like Become Anonymous does. So if you have this in play, put 4 counters on it, it gets turned face down by one of our cards that turns it face down, it still keeps the counters. So it's a 2/2, but it's got 4 counters. You flip it face up with its own disguise abilities, it sees itself as an 8/8 because it counts power and counters. Double it again, so then it would be a 16/16. Yeah, this card is. And the fact that trample means, yeah, you're not blocking. All right, then we have probably the second best card in the deck behind Threats Beyond Every Corner. It's essentially our backup commander, Panoptic Projector. It's a 4-mana artifact. You can tap it to make your next face-down creature spell essentially free. Every version of Morph that currently exists makes it cost 3 colorless mana, so that's basically free. The one thing you want to consider is this interaction. So these are both in play, right? The wording is very specific and important with these cards. This says the first face down creature you cast costs 3 less, free. This one says the next. So if you were to activate this, beginning of main phase 1, then morph a creature, okay, that's great. Draw a card. You don't get to then use Kadena because you've already put a face down creature into play. So you always want to, for the first one, if you have both, face down, trigger. Next one, activate. Second face down, draw a card. So make sure you keep that in mind if you're playing this, which you definitely should be if you're playing Morph. The other reason is anytime you flip a face down permanent face up, if it triggers any permanent you control, it triggers twice. So for instance, if you have Experiment 12, you flip it face up, it doubles twice. And doubling anything in Magic is very strong. Alrighty, keep it going. Make sure we're going down my list. You guys can actually see the cards. We've got Roshan, Hidden Magister, another Assassin's Creed card. Who would have thought these assassins would love morphing and being disguised? So the first part, other creatures you control become assassins. I don't think there's really any relevance to that for our deck, but the second and third lines are both very relevant. It gives all of our face-down creatures menace. Great, that's all gravy. And similar to Secret Plans, whenever a face-down permanent is turned face up, you draw a card and lose a life. Okay, yeah, this is just a card you want to just stick on the board and get drawn. All right, then we've got a couple more here. We've got, let's make sure everyone can read everything. All right, we've got Thelonite Hermit. So this is a 4-mana 1/1, yikes. Elf Shaman, Saprolings get +1/+1, and when it's turned face up, you make 4 1/1 saplings. I mostly use this card as a blocker, just to get some, guys on the board and just you can kind of use it as a fog. They attack and you flip it up. You block everyone that they think they're getting through on, or they think they're getting through with their, I don't know, Timna or something crazy, and you flip it face up. Just a good versatile effect. I like having a little bit of everything. All right, next we're going to Ithalid Harvester. So this is a adventure card for X and 2 blue. You can tap X creatures, and they don't untap during the next controller's untap steps. So just tempo, okay, great. We're tapping some stuff down, and sure. But it's the other ability that really is the reason we're playing it. Whenever this creature enters the battlefield, tap any number of target tapped creatures, turn them face down, they become 2/2s. This card is an offensive and a value monster. One of the best ways to remove important permanents your opponents control is by turning them face down, because They can't reanimate them. They can't, you know, they're just, they exist, especially on commanders. You know, if something gets face down, that's not changing zones. So if you target all their commanders, they're not going back. So they have to find another way to get them removed. The other thing is, you oftentimes want to target your own creatures. So, you know, you just flipped up your hermit and, you know, you attack somebody with no blockers. Well, I'm going to target your commander, your commander, your commander with the first part, so they're all tapped. And then with the second part, I'm going to turn all of them face down and my creature, because it doesn't matter how these end up face down. If it's face down, you can pay the morph cost. Yeah. Lovely. All right. Next, we've got Ixodron. It's a 5-mana XX, and its power and toughness are equal to the number of face-down creatures in play. And when ETBs, turn all other non-token creatures face down. They're 2/2s. This might be the single most underplayed board wipe in all of Commander. This is such a specific way of removing very problematic permanents. Doesn't care about hexproof, doesn't care about indestructible. It removes all keywords. Their opponent's commanders don't die. They just get stuck as 2/2s. And you end up with a 5-mana, say there's 10 creatures on board, including it, you get a 5-mana 9/9. Insane. Also, in this deck specifically, well, we had 3 face-up morph creatures. Well, they're face down. Yeah, this card has caused a lot of rage and won a lot of games for me. And then lastly, another just ridiculous value card. I'm sorry, I think my screen's cutting off a little bit, but yeah, you can sort of read it from my camera. So we have They Came From the Pipes, which is a 5-mana enchantment, and when it enters the battlefield, manifest Dread twice, and anytime a face-down creature enters, draw a card. Yeah, so it's basically the bottom ability of Kadena. So we play face down, it enters, and it itself puts 2 cards into play face down. So 5-mana, make 2 2/2s, draw 2 cards, and draws you a bunch of other cards in the future. Great. All right, so this deck obviously draws so many cards. Let's go, I think, for our next category. Oh, there's so many fun cards in this deck. How about this very specific category I have called Morph. And this just has just generic Morph synergies. Pretty much everything I just showed you is more card draw specific, but these are going to be more just cards that just really work with your commander and all the other synergies we're building. All right, so we have Atrada, Deadly Fugitive. Let's make sure everyone can see the full card and full name. So it's another assassin. Great. It's a 3-mana 1/4 Death Touch, which that's fine. It gives all face-down creatures you control the ability, for 4 mana, turn this creature face up. If you can't, exile it. Then you may cast the exile spell without paying its mana cost. So this, again, very specific wording. So, for instance, if you had, that's a good example. No, if you have your Hermit in play face down, sure, you can flip it. You can flip it face up for 4 mana, but that's not really the intent of this card. But I'll break that down. So the other ability, whenever an assassin you control deals damage to an opponent, cloak the top part of that player's library. So cloak, again, you know, you can hate me for not remembering, but it's essentially the same as morph. One of them has, you know, ward 2 or whatever, you know. Yeah, I didn't do my cloak inverse disguise research. I'm an idiot. But so you attack your opponent, you steal a top card of their library, put it face down. You got your commander, draw a card. But that's where the top line really becomes important, because when it's face down, if it's not a morphed creature, well, I can't turn it face up, but Atrada says, well, we're still going to pay 4 mana and we're going to flip it face up no matter what it is. And I believe the way it works too is it says as a face down, it's a morph, so it's a creature. But you can turn it face up, and even if it's a non-creature spell, you can still cast it for that 4 mana without paying its mana cost. So if you hit some crazy expropriate or omniscience or whatever, you know, you can steal that. And that is just lovely. All right. Next, another very cool card with very cool art. Oh, no, we're not back to Etrata. So Hauntwood Shrieker, one of the sickest arts from Duskmarn. The reflection of the monster and the knife is just very crazy looking. I know my camera's not doing it justice, but in IRL, this card looks ridiculous. So yeah, it's a 3 mana 3/3. When it attacks, you manifest dread. Draw a card. And then for 2 mana, you can reveal a face down permanent. If it's a creature card, turn it face up. Ridiculous. So being able to turn any of your face down morphs face up for 2 mana is very, very, very powerful. There's a ton of ridiculous morphs that cost anywhere between, 3 to 7 mana that you can discount to 2 mana. Because again, morphs don't care how you turn them face up. If it's getting turned face up, it is triggering whatever ability. Because most of the time it'll say morph and then it says whenever it's turned face up. They're like 2 separate lines. So this card is very powerful, and once you start playing it, your opponents are going to quickly realize it is a must kill. Scroll of Fate. This is a simple one. 3 mana, tap it, manifest a card from your hand. Manifest just says it becomes a 2/2 creature if it's face down, and if it's a creature, you can flip it face up for its mana cost. Yeah, so this is a good way to exploit your commander, like every other card in the deck. But this says whenever a face down creature enters, draw a card, and you're only getting the mana reduction for the first one. So beyond that, it's just a 3 mana 3/2 draw card, which is less exciting. But that other ability still triggers on your opponent's turn. So if you have this in play on your opponent's turn, you tap it, you basically flash in a face down, draw a card, and if it happens to be one that is interaction, you flip it face up. You get a ton of value. So yeah, that's a good one. We like that. We like a little bit of scrollage. All right. Ugin's Mastery. Another card that I think it came in the MH3 Eldrazi deck, and I have no idea what it has to do with Eldrazi's, but us Morph players are very excited. It's a 4 mana enchantment. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, manifest the top card of your library. We're going to break that down in a second. And whenever you attack with creatures power 6 or greater, total power 6 or greater, you flip something face up. Yeah, this card is beyond good in this deck. So, what are morphs in disguises and cloaks? They're colorless creature spells. So, you have this in play. I'm going to cast my free morph return. My commander's up. I'm going to cast my free morph return. On cast, we're going to manifest top part of our library. Enter. This season both draws a card. So for 0 mana, we just put 2 2/2s into play that both draw a card, and if either of these are morphs, we flip them face up, and then guess what? We've got 7 power in here. We attack with all, flip something face up. Yeah, this is a very dangerous synergy. Yeah. All right. What's up next? We have Vannifar, Evolved Enigma. Lovely. So Vannifar is a 4 mana 3/4 Elf Ooze Wizard, same. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, you can cloak a card from your hand or put a counter on each colorless creature you control. And cloaking is the one with word 2. All right, good to know. Yeah, so every turn you're getting a free morph, draw a card. Or if you don't have stuff that you want to morph, you're just putting counters on your creatures. And as we talked about, if you put a counter on a face down creature and it turns face up without exiling, that counter remains. So this card is a must answer for your opponents. Not much else to say. It's pretty basic, but also powerful. Alrighty, then we have Simone, Mystery Unraveler. another Duskmourn card, sorry, Duskmantle, that's a made-up word. Great for this deck. It's a 4-mana 3/3 landfall, Manifest Dread, draw a card. But if it's the second time it's resolved, you flip something face up. So yeah, this card is something that scales with your mana base. If you're playing, the more fetch lands you play, the better. Obviously, the more Nature's Lores and etc. that you play is great. This is a combo, by the way. So you play this Manifest Dread, tutor a land. This enters Manifest Dread, which tutors the land, which then flips something face up. Deadly, deadly, deadly. Yeah. Alrighty, another. This is a card that, you know, I think it's in the deck because it's just cool and old, and I mean, obviously it's good. 5 mana, 3/4 is bad. Makes all your morphs 3/3s, but then they lose that buff when they get face up. But the ability to flip face down creatures up for 3 mana is quite good. I think most of them are 2 to 5 mana, so a lot of the times you're going to get a discount there. But yeah, this is more just, I'm playing this card because it's cool. You could definitely make the argument not to play it. This is a card you definitely cannot make the argument not to play. Primordial Mist. During each of your end steps, manifest the top part of your library, draw a card. But the second part is what really makes it cracked. At any time, you can exile face down permanent you control, face up, and then you can play the card this turn. This is a specific way of being able to play cards that get manifested or you take from your opponents and playing them even though they're not morphs, for instance. So, I cloak with the Assassin's card, for instance, or I morph something that isn't, a morph. Well, I still want to be able to play it, and this allows you to do that. So, definitely a must include. Then we have the Whisperwood Elemental, one of the best draft cards ever, and definitely one of the better cards in our deck. 5 mana 4/4. During your end step, manifest, draw a card. Sorry, that meme's getting old, but it's true. The other part that makes it ridiculous is you can, at its speed, you stack it, and every face-up creature you control gains, when it dies, manifest. So it's ridiculous board wipe production, and the cards that you're getting, you say you manifest 5 cards. Well, probably 2 or 3 of them are going to be morph creatures that then threaten other abilities. So this card makes your opponent's board wipes worse, and the longer they wait on the board wipe, the more creatures you get. All right. Another card that when they printed it, I'm imagining they weren't thinking about morph, but if they were, they're geniuses. Eudora excuse me, Eudora Grave Robber is a 5 mana 5/5, and whenever a non-token creature you control dies, return it to the battlefield face down. It's a forest land. Wow. That's great. So, first off, okay, I've got my Whisperwood in play. I sacrifice it to give all my stuff, whatever, protection. It dies, it becomes a forest. Okay, that's fine. But if you have something with a morph ability, like, let's see, where's all my damn morphs? Okay. Spearman 12 dies. Cool. It's a forest. This doesn't have abilities as a forest, but this card being face down still has its own abilities and it still tracks that. So then you can flip it face up. Trigger. It's morph. Because all it says is when it's turned face up, trigger. Dies again. Forest. Yeah, do the math on that one. We don't play any altars or whatever, but it definitely has some combo potential if that's what you want to do with the deck. But it's for $68, that's not really what we're interested in. All right, and lastly, in this category, we have Weaver of Lies. It's cut off a little bit, but you know, I just told you the name, so you don't even need to see it. It is a 7 mana 4/4, but don't worry, none of our cards cost 7 mana. And it's got Morph for 5, and when it's turned face up, turn any number of other target creatures with Morph other than Weaver face down. Yeah, I mean, it's a little clunky, it's a little slow, it's a little mana intensive. But man, if you can flip it up cheaper, you will be getting ridiculous value with this card. All for 46 cents. Alrighty. So you're probably thinking, you know, we've got a ton of card draw, we've got a good bit of ramp, but like, you're only still getting this once per turn. Well, that's why we are very, very invested in playing flashcards. First one we have is Skittering Cicada. It's a 3 mana 2/2 flash insect. All colorless spells you have, all color spells have flash, and whenever you cast a color spell, the cicada gets +X, where X is the spell's mana value. Yeah. Do you want our color spells? Morphs. Yeah. So here's a little situation. So let's go turn 1, nothing. Turn 2, nothing. Or ramp, whatever. Turn 3, cicada. Turn 4, Cadena. On our turn, morph, draw a card. Excuse me. Player 2's turn, morph, draw a card. Player, et cetera, et cetera. So this is essentially, if you keep drawing morphs, you can keep morphing them on the next player's turn, draw morphs, and then when it gets back to your turn, you don't need to cast anything. I've got all these morph creatures in play. I'm going to spend my mana on that, and I'm just going to keep morphing stuff in for free, drawing more cards, playing lands, holding up your flip spells. You don't have to do anything. You wait for your opponents to make the move and then snap. We have a couple other versions that are essentially the same thing. This only counts colorless spells, but we also have Leyline of Anticipation and High Fate Trickster, which are both gives all of our spells flash. A couple differences. Trickster's a creature with flying and a little bit of power, and Anticipation is a leyline, so if you start with it in your opening hand, you're never casting pretty much anything at sorcery speed, which is a big advantage. The third one that I didn't mention, which obviously you guys can see on, on my other screen, but Vivian, Champion of the Wilds. Passive ability gives every creature spell we have flash, morphs. The other abilities are pretty decent. Giving a creature vigilance and reach is nominal. It doesn't really matter, but -2. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Exile 1 face down. And then, so long as it's face down, you can cast if it's a creature. Yeah, it's a little bit of card advantage, but mostly it's just 3 mana flash morphs, and yeah, that's just worth playing a random planeswalker for. All right. So we've gone over that. We've gone over ramp. Let's see here. This is everything I've shown you pretty much is drawing cards. Well, your opponents eventually are going to say you are drawing way too many cards. We are also playing crazy stuff, so we also need to be able to stop what our opponent's doing. So we do have a pretty decent removal suite here. So now that we kind of have gone over the, what morph is and how it works, we have a couple of artifact and enchantment removal in Inox Survivalist and where's the other one? Nantuko Vigilante. These are both just creatures that you can flip up to blow them up. And of course, we're drawing cards because you always want your commander in play. We also have a little bit of bounce. So we have Ice Feather Aven and Exit Specialist. Both are, when they're flipped up, return another creature to its owner's hands. The other text is, a little bit of flying or whatever, unblockable. It doesn't matter. These are just ways to protect spells. And there is a kind of a cool thing. Like if you have this plus these two plus a flash, you can flip this up target this, hold priority, flip this up, target this, bounce them both, and then on an opponent's next turn, flash it in, draw a card, flash it in, draw a card, flip up, flip up. So, but yeah, that's super niche. Otherwise, you can use it as a protection spell, flip it up, bounce your commander, protect it. We just need any sort of removal, and these are pretty decent. We do also have a couple board wipes that are morph creatures. We have Thousand Winds and Bane of the Living. With Thousand Winds, it just turns face up, return all tap creatures to the owner's hand. We don't do a ton of attacking until we're ready to win, so a lot of times your opponent says, I'm going to attack with everything. Well, no, bounce everything. And then we have Bane of the Living, which is X and 2 black, -X to all creatures, including itself. So if you do more than 2, it's going to kill itself unless you have a pump. But again, instant speed board wipes. Pretty good. And for the last two, just a couple niche cards. We have Cyber Conversion from Doctor Whom. 2-mana instant. Turn a creature face down. It becomes a 2/2. Cyberman artifact. This is just awesome commander removal, for instance. You can think of this card in a lot of ways as Reality Shift. But also, there are times when you're going to target your own creatures just to be able to retrigger morphs. It doesn't work with your commander in that way. It's not actually entering face down, it's just turning face down, but there are, again, just having a removal spell that also just synergizes offensively with your deck is great. And lastly, we have Chrome Shell Crab. Turn it face up, you may exchange control of target creature you control and target creature opponent you control. So yeah, you steal their best creature, you give them a 3/3 crab or whatever random face up morph that you don't care about. Seems like a deal to me. Yeah, so on top of remove, there are some things that we just can't deal with once they're in play. We'd rather stop them before they get down, or we need some answers to counter spells. And luckily for us, if I could find where I put it in my deck, we do have some protection spells. All right, so we have Kadeena's Silencer, Kadeena's best friend. Turn it face up, counter all abilities your opponent controls. That's a very wide very wide and inspecific ability that can hit so many things, ranging from storm triggers, fetch land triggers, Catharsis Commando triggers, Terror of the Peaks. Like, I'm just saying random cards at this point, but like, it's all abilities. Your opponent casts a Solemn and there's 7 ETB triggers, well, or no abilities. Yeah, card's great. Then we have Stratus Dancer. This one's a little more simple. Just flip it up, counter instant or sorcery. Most instants are interaction, removal. Most sorceries are big plays, board wipes. So a lot of the spells your opponents are casting that are those types, you want to be ready to answer. All right. And when you don't know what you need to answer, flip up your Void Maiden Apprentice and just counter the spell. Simple as that. All right. And then the old meme, it's always Willbender. Well, in this time it is. Willbender is a creature, 2-mana creature, morph. Everything's got morph. When it's turn face up, redirect target spell or ability with a single target. Yeah, this is just removal spells. Doesn't necessarily work with some counter spells because this isn't a spell on the stack, it's an ability on the stack. But yeah, this card can cause a lot of havoc for 2 mana to flip up. For a little bigger and more expensive effect, we have the Kiru Spell Snatcher. 4 mana 3/3, but again, that doesn't matter. It's a morph, and it's 6 to flip face up, and when you do, you counter a spell, and then instead of putting it in the graveyard, you exile it, and also you can cast it without paying its mana cost. Yeah, that's pretty gross. But pick your targets wisely, because it is expensive. Probably the most expensive card in the deck, and probably the most playable card outside of Morph, Gift of Doom. It's an enchantment aura with morph, and how it works is you cast it as a creature, so morph or whatever, draw a card, and to flip face up, you sack some other creature, and it flips up. It's an aura. The aura automatically has to target, so it's automatically, there's no trigger, it just attaches. So morph timing is pretty complicated, more than I want to get to in my already 45-minute video, but yeah, so if your opponent tries to destroy your commander, you flip it face up, it has to attach. Morphs can't exist unattached. Doesn't say target, it says you may attach it. Indestructible, death touch. Yeah, it's great. And the last one is Mischievous Quasar. It's got morph 3 to face up. When it's turn face up, copy an instant sorcery. So similar to the Stratus Dancer, but it's copy instead of counter. It also is reusable, which is a very unique effect. So you're for 8 mana, if it is just face up, any instant or sorcery your opponent plays, boom. That, of course, if you have other ways to do it cheaper, great, but yeah. Alrighty, and besides the lands, the last thing for this deck is we do have a 2-card combo. Pretty notorious. I'll show them both at once. So we have Vesuvan Shapeshifter and Brine Elemental. Yes. So let's start with Brine Elemental because that's actually the simpler one. So it's a big old creature, and when you flip it face up, each opponent skips their untap step. Yeah, your opponents typically do better when they untap, so that they don't untap their creatures, lands. They still draw, they can still play spells, but they're going to be pretty hampered. But that's only for one turn, right? Well, no. This is where Vesuvan Shapeshifter comes in. It's a paragraph of text, but when it enters the battlefield, or you flip it face up, you choose another creature on the battlefield, and until end of turn, if it's turn faced up, it becomes a copy of that creature, except at the beginning of your upkeep, you can turn it face down. Yeah, so if you're seeing what I'm seeing here, it doesn't say when it enters or whatever. It's, well, I'm sorry, it does say that, but the way that we use it is when it's turn faced up, it can copy the morph ability of any creature on the battlefield. So we're going to copy Brine Elemental. So again, no untaps. I'm sorry about my freaking dry hands. It's some lotion or something. But yeah, so you go to you flip face up, no untaps. You go back to your turn, flip face down. Flip face up, trigger, no upkeeps. Your opponent's still on untap, and without an untap step, your opponents are pretty doomed. And then we're gonna go through the lands quickly. For the most part, we'll go through the you can see it in the deck list. I'm gonna have it in the description, but it's a lot of just typical 3-color stuff. We do have 14 basics. This is a little more than I would normally run on 3 colors, but we do have those couple of cards that really care about having ramping basics into play, and we want to make sure we get as much value out of that as possible without compromising our fixing. As for utility lands, I guess I can show them on the screen. We play Bajuka Bog. We're a control deck. Graveyard raid on the land is good. This is one that I'm just kind of playing. I'm still unsure, but weird landscape. Play it on turn, 1, untap it, play another land, ramp. So you can get 5 mana on turn 4. This could definitely be a lot of other cards, but yeah, do what you want at this slot. That's kind of a free-for-all. We do actually have 2 more morphs in our land slots, which is pretty sweet. The worst, I would say, is Zoetic Cavern. Just taps for a colorless, and it's got morph. So, with land that draws you the cards, you can flip it face up for 2 mana. You get the 1 mana back because you can tap at the turn you flip it face up. There's no summoning sickness to worry about there. Um, yeah, it's just another thing. You can bluff with it. You get your free draw off of it. It makes keeping this in a hand with your commander, better because you can cycle it essentially. And we also have Branch of Vitu-Ghazi, which is similar in that it's got colorless mana with Disguise, so it's got the ward too. But when you turn it face up, you add 2 mana of any one color, and you don't lose it as steps and phases end. So cast it, you draw your card, you flip it face up, you add 2 mana, you tap it, that's 3 mana, so that pays for itself, but it's also fixing. So yeah, being able to have card draw creatures, a little fixing just on a colorless untapped land is pretty fantastic. And yeah, that's if you stuck through this, that's crazy. Love you for that. This is my Kadena deck. You build it, you're gonna spend, $60. Mine is 68, but that's definitely not the cheapest you could go. These are just the printings I have. I have some of the older stuff for the creatures, which makes it like quarters more, so definitely could get that down lower. Definitely there are some cards you could cut. Like High Fate Trickster, you could cut, save a couple bucks. The Cicada, you could get the non extended version for, oh, it's more expensive. Never mind. Just disregard that. You could find a different thing there, but yeah, I mean, a lot of decks for $70, you're forced to play the cards you don't want. But with this deck, you are really pretty much playing everything you want outside of, just generically powerful, like, oh, play Demonic Tutor or, whatever, just these very good cards. But you're going to win a lot of games for $68. And yeah, well, I appreciate everyone who's checked out the video. If you stayed this long, you definitely need to like this video because, you know, you just have to. There's not even a conversation there. But all right, more deck text to come. Bye.